Ben and I grew up together, and his mother, Anna, recently started suspecting her son might be gay. She enlisted me to test him out. Every day, I'd dress provocatively and try to seduce Ben. I'd rub his leg under the table at dinner, throw flirtatious lines into our conversations, and even got a bit handsy with him when the lights went out. But he remained completely unfazed, going as far as to wrap me in a blanket and toss me out of his room. Later, when I started hanging around our classmate Mike, Ben finally seemed rattled. One night, he cornered me in my bedroom, voice dripping with menace. "Seducing me wasn't enough? Now you're after someone else, huh? Quite the skill you've got." I'd barely knocked on the door next door when Ms. Anna shoved me right into Ben's room. "Sweetheart, it's all up to you now. Don't forget our plan," she whispered before locking the door behind me, giving me no chance to respond. Just then, the bathroom door opened, and Ben walked out, steam wafting off him. He was only wearing pajama pants, with a towel slung over his head, exposing his pale skin and the trail of water droplets slowly sliding down his long neck. As my gaze trailed downward to his abs and that hint of a V-line, Ben cleared his throat uncomfortably. "What are you doing here?" I stepped forward, lifting my head to look up at him. "I missed you. You weren't replying to my texts, so I had to come see you in person." Though we were close, it was the first time I'd done anything like this, and I felt strangely nervous. Ben stood stiffly, his irritation evident. "Have you even looked at the nonsense you've been sending me?" Ever since Ms. Anna gave me the mission to test if he was gay, I'd been sending him nothing but suggestive texts. If it wasn't flirty, I didn't send it. I went to the hospital today. My head kinda hurts." "Ben, did the doctor say you're crazy?" "The doctor told me to stop thinking about kissing you." "But do you think I can resist?" "I'd rather have a headache than not think about kissing you." Why aren't you saying anything? Are you thinking the same thing?" Fine, we don't have to kiss. How about we do something more adult?" I smirked mischievously, leaning closer to him. "Anything you want to do. I'm all yours." Ben's expression darkened as he grabbed me off him and tossed me onto the bed. He leaned in close, the fresh scent of his body wash filling the space between us. I clutched the blanket nervously, torn between wanting him to do something and fearing he actually would. But in the next moment, Ben smirked, grabbed the blanket, and wrapped me up like a burrito, before tossing me over his shoulder. "Ben, what are you doing?" I squirmed, trying to get down, but then I felt a firm slap on my backside, light enough to be felt yet enough to make my ears burn. "Stay still," he said coldly. He dumped me on the living room couch, bracing one hand on the armrest as he leaned down and gave a low warning. "Susie, don't try to mess with me." Ugh. I can't believe he's still not interested. Maybe he really is into men. At the dinner table, I didn't hold back either. I casually kicked off my slippers and started rubbing my foot along Ben's calf. His hand froze mid-bite, his dark eyes sharpening, Adam's apple bobbing. Far from scared, I even reached over and placed a piece of beef in his bowl, with a playful smile. Ms. Anna's red wine-braised beef is as delicious as ever. Ms. Anna beamed, oblivious to the tension under the table. "Oh, Susie, you're such a sweet talker. If you marry Ben, I'll cook this for you every day." I'd heard that line at least 100 times, but Ben remained as indifferent as ever, so I couldn't really blame her for wondering if he was gay. Smirking at him, I replied, "I wouldn't mind that. When we were kids, I'd follow Ben around like a little shadow, always sticking to him. When he'd skip class, I'd cover for him. When he got in a fight, I'd cheer him on. If he got in trouble, I'd beg for him." The neighbors around us became our fans, constantly teasing me that I'd be Ben's wife one day. Eventually, that teasing grew into a real crush. I'd cling to him whenever I could. But he acted like some kind of saint, refusing the advances of countless girls who confessed to him. I got discouraged and assumed I didn't stand a chance. I soon moved on to the boy at the local convenience store. Mostly because he'd let me sneak free cucumber-flavored chips. Ben didn't react to my new crush, though my mom was always lurking by our door with a switch in hand. Any trace of chip crumbs in my hand or on my lips earned me a good spanking, and I didn't have to think hard to know who'd ratted me out. Later, I liked the son of the skateboard shop owner. Then the pizza shop lady's son, anyone who could get me close to something I enjoyed. These weren't real crushes, just me running my mouth like a dumb kid. I would never admit to just liking the free perks. But that's when I realized Ben truly wasn't interested in me. He never showed any jealousy. So when Ms. Anna came to me for help, I agreed right away. Since he didn't like me, it was harmless to flirt with him. And I'd get to watch him squirm. Win-win. Just as my foot reached a warmer spot on his leg, Ben gripped my ankle, not lightly either. I frowned slightly, muttering under my breath while Ms. Anna's back was turned, "You're hurting me." Ben seemed momentarily stunned, then released my ankle and left the table abruptly with a curt "behave yourself," retreating to his room. I shrugged, unbothered, and continued eating. Such a bad temper, yet he'd definitely reacted to my teasing. One day, with nothing better to do, I decided to visit Ben at his internship and see if I could get a free meal and maybe flirt with him a bit. He stood out in the crowd, his tailored suit making him look even taller and more impressive. It was the first time I'd seen him looking so serious, and the more I looked, the more I liked it. At lunch, people kept stopping by our table to greet him. He seemed pretty popular at the company. Then, a girl in a long brown dress, with her hair tied in a delicate bun, approached. "Oh, you're having lunch too? There's no other seat. Mind if I join you?" Ben didn't think much of it and gestured for her to sit wherever. She settled in and immediately started chatting with Ben about work, throwing around professional jargon and even switching into French. I couldn't get a word in and ended up silently stuffing food into my mouth, feeling a little sour. At some point, the topic shifted to me, and she smiled politely as she asked, "Is this your sister?" "She's adorable." I could tell right away she was interested in Ben and was testing to see if I was his girlfriend. Ben neither confirmed nor denied it, which only annoyed me further. I continued my battle with a crab leg and turned to Ben with an innocent smile. "Ben, could you help me tie my hair? It's getting a bit messy." He stood up, revealing a hair tie around his wrist. Awkwardly, he gathered my hair and tied it up, even using his thumb to wipe some crumbs off the corner of my mouth. "Here, let me handle it. You focus on eating your veggies." I froze for a second, realizing that the hair tie was one I'd left at his place before. I hadn't expected him to keep it on his wrist. Even someone as oblivious as that girl could understand the implication, and she quickly finished her meal and excused herself. Ben placed some crab meat he'd shelled in front of me, raising an eyebrow. "Happy now?" Far from feeling guilty about my obvious satisfaction, I smirked and asked, "So, is she after you?" "Probably." I popped a piece of crab into my mouth and pouted. "Well, don't agree to it." He crossed his arms and leaned back casually. "And why not? Wasn't it obvious? This guy's been impervious to my hints since childhood." I batted my eyes and teased, "Why is my hair tie on your wrist? Just admit you have a crush on me, I won't say no." Ben took a sip of water, trying to play it cool. "Oh, that was yours? My mom wanted me to use it to tie Nina's hair. But I guess you got to it first." Nina was his long-haired dog, and Anna dressed her up in more outfits than I could count. I shot him a glare. Typical, couldn't get a straight answer out of him. As the New Year holiday approached, Ben and I both got extended breaks. My mom and Ben's mom planned for both families to spend the holiday at the beach, where we had a house big enough for all of us. At the last minute, they both had work to finish and decided that Ben and I should go on ahead. I wasn't sure if it was a real work emergency or something they'd planned all along, but either way, I didn't mind. The absence of adults meant more freedom for me to act. After a long, tiring journey, I dozed off with my head resting on Ben's shoulder. When I woke up, I realized he'd stayed in the same position the whole time so I could sleep comfortably, even though his shoulder had gone numb. As a gesture of thanks, I massaged his shoulder a bit. He seemed to enjoy it, closing his eyes like a contented cat. Didn't expect someone your size to have such strength. Ben led the way into our room, but just as the overhead light turned on, it fizzled out with a spark, leaving us in darkness. I lazily grabbed his arm, pretending to be scared as I snuggled into his chest. It's so dark, I'm scared. Everything was quiet, with only the sound of waves faintly audible outside. He took a deep breath and pulled me onto the sofa, his voice a bit impatient. If you're scared, just stay here and don't move. I'll find some candles. How could I let him leave at a moment like this? I accurately found his leg and tripped him, then quickly straddled his lap, my fingers lightly pinching his earlobe to feel the warmth there. There aren't any candles here. Just stay with me for a while. Ben's voice was laced with frustration as he gritted his teeth, his body trembling slightly with restraint. Susie Esther, don't push your luck. Who taught you all this nonsense? He always called me by my full name when he was angry, especially now, his voice low and rough, biting off every word. Before the trip, I'd asked my friend for some tips and watched a lot of romance movies. Who knew they'd be so effective? Men really couldn't resist a little teasing. I buried my head in his neck, my cheek brushing against his. You don't like it? Isn't this supposed to be effective on guys? Ben's voice grew husky, as if he was holding back everything he had. And who else have you tried this on? Only you. It was true I'd never dated anyone. But I wasn't shy about trying these things, at least not with Ben. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't even be able to go through with it. Following my friend's advice, I knew most guys couldn't resist at a moment like this. And sure enough, Ben wrapped an arm around my waist and carried me towards the bedroom. Well, Ms. Anna, it seems your son does like girls after all. Easy victory. Except, why does this feel off? The next thing I knew, he'd tied me up and left me on the balcony. Did he really bring a rope on a beach trip just to guard against me? Unbelievable. Ben, are you even a man? You couldn't handle that? He looked down at me, an amused smile breaking through his anger. Oh, I can handle it. Want to find out? I glared at him. Bring it on. Who's scared? Ben shook his head, exasperated, and used his finger to push my face back. Can't you act like a proper girl? I don't know what you and my mom have planned, but until the power's back, cool down here. I pulled my head back a bit, feeling slightly guilty. Had he figured it out? If he had, the reward Ms. Anna promised me $10,000 was as good as gone. The past few days, Ben has been doing all the cooking while I fully embrace my role as the clueless one in the kitchen. Everything he makes perfectly suits my taste, spicy and flavorful. After each meal, I'd indulge myself with some aromatherapy and a nice bath, fully enjoying the moment. But halfway through one of my baths, the water stopped. With soap suds in my eyes, I couldn't see a thing, and I wrapped myself in a towel, calling out, Ben. Since the bathroom door wasn't locked, he came rushing in, and seeing me like that, his voice dropped a few tones. What's going on? Struggling with the sting in my eyes, I said, the water's off, and I got soap in my eyes. Help me rinse it. Don't rub it. Just hold on. Ben left and quickly came back, guiding me to the shower area and using a bottle of mineral water to gently rinse my eyes. Does that feel better? As my vision cleared, I looked up and met his gaze. His dark eyes were bright, and the humidity in the room hung in the air, making my pulse quicken and my fingers tremble slightly. With the atmosphere this charged, how could I not take advantage of the moment? I only intended to get a little closer, maybe add a bit of physical contact, but somehow, my lips brushed against the spot just behind his ear, sending a shiver down his spine. He wasn't as composed as I thought. His earlobes, and even his collarbone, started turning a lovely shade of pink. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he handed me the water bottle before stepping back. You should get out first. I felt a bit flustered too, clutching the bottle as I stumbled out of the bathroom. The sound of water came from inside. Apparently, Ben had decided to take a cold shower. And he didn't come out for a long while. Clutching my chest, I took a deep breath, realizing just how deeply my feelings for him had grown. Since that kiss with Ben, he's been ignoring me entirely, leaving me to parade around like a peacock, trying to catch his attention. Several times I tried to strike up a conversation, only for him to completely brush me off. That afternoon, after he came back from surfing, he walked straight into the bathroom without even glancing in my direction. My invitation to join me at the beach market just withered on my lips. He really has zero interest in me, huh? Even when I'm practically throwing myself at him, he still doesn't take the bait. Feeling frustrated and annoyed, I pouted, went to my room, changed into a slinky dress, and decided to go out on my own. The winter sea breeze was warm and comforting, making my solo stroll along the beach feel oddly freeing. Eventually, I found myself outside an open-air bar, where a few surfers hanging around the entrance invited me to join them. Smiling, I accepted their offer and joined the group. Soon enough, we were all laughing and chatting as if we'd known each other forever, sipping drinks and enjoying the moment. I even bumped into Mike, a guy from my school, who quickly recognized me. "Susie, are you here for the new year too?" "Yep, what a coincidence, Mike." He handed me a drink that looked like a sunset. "Try this, it's a local specialty." I took a small sip. It was tangy and sweet, really refreshing. I didn't know Mike very well, we'd only crossed paths a few times at club activities. He was a nice guy, and he took care of me throughout the evening. He even invited me to join him for a boat ride in the morning to catch the sunrise, promising it'd be the most beautiful sight. After hesitating for a bit, I agreed. After all, Ben didn't seem to care where I went anyway. But when I returned to our place that evening, I spotted Ben standing by the door, his expression dark and tense. "Susie." Hugging the coconut Mike had given me, I tried to mimic Ben's indifferent look. "What's up?" His brows knitted tightly, his chest heaving with every breath. "Why'd you leave without saying anything? You didn't pick up your phone or answer any texts. Do you have any idea how long I spent looking for you?" I thought he wanted some alone time, so I gave him space. Wasn't that what he wanted? He was impossible to please. Settling myself into the rocking chair, I replied coolly, "Oh, my phone died." Which was true, though I'd turned down Mike's offer of a charger later on. Ben seemed even more irritated by my dismissive tone. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into the room, throwing me onto the bed. Before I could get away, he pinned me down, his nose hovering just inches from my face as he sniffed the air around me. "You've been drinking? Don't you know it's dangerous for a girl to be out drinking alone at night? What if some creep had taken advantage of you? What would you have me do then? What would I tell your parents? How can you be so careless with yourself?" At first, I felt a bit guilty for worrying him, but his last comment hit a nerve. "Who said I was careless? Who asked you to care? What are we to each other anyway?" A vein in Ben's forehead pulsed, and he took a deep breath, clearly struggling to control his temper. "Fine. We're nothing." Frustrated but clearly unable to actually punish me, he thought for a moment before flipping me over and swatting me hard. Once, then again. I froze, unable to believe he'd actually hit me. Last time, he'd done it over the blanket, but this time, there was nothing in between. The sting was both painful and embarrassing. "Ben, you actually..." I couldn't even finish the sentence. I'd never been hit before in my life, let alone in such an undignified spot. "You're a lunatic." Ben paused, his face flushed with embarrassment as he stood at the edge of the bed, his shadow looming over me. I buried my head in the blankets, determined not to look at him. The room was silent, save for the sound of our uneven breathing. Neither of us willing to be the first to break the tension. Ben had always been like this as a kid. Whenever he got mad, he'd go silent, waiting for me to apologize before he'd calm down. But this time I wasn't going to be the first to apologize. Let him sulk all he wanted. At some point, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, someone was gently lifting me onto the bed. I vaguely felt Ben's fingers wiping away my tears, muttering something I couldn't quite catch. I wriggled a bit, half asleep, and drifted off again. I was awakened by my phone ringing early the next morning, fumbling around my bedside table to grab it. Hello? Good morning, Susie. It's Mike. You're not up yet? I'm already downstairs. Sitting up, I suddenly remembered my promise from yesterday and quickly replied, Sorry, I'll be right down, give me 5 minutes. Mike chuckled lightly, trying to reassure me. No rush. We've got time. Take it easy. My noise must have woken Ben, who was leaning against the bedroom doorframe, eyes half closed. Where are you off to this early? Ignoring him, I slipped on my flip-flops and headed out the door. I hadn't gone far when Ben caught up with me, wearing a black t-shirt and glasses, hands in his pockets, looking both relaxed and handsome. Why are you following me? Forgot already? Is your backside not sore enough? A quiet chuckle came from him, soft but noticeable enough to make my face heat up. He actually had the nerve to bring that up. His skin was getting thicker by the day. I didn't answer, just puffed my cheeks in frustration and hurried downstairs. When Mike saw Ben trailing behind me, his eyes briefly flashed with curiosity as he asked, And who might this be? Don't mind him. Let's just enjoy our time. Ben's jaw tightened, his previously relaxed expression shifting to something stony and tense, with a hint of icy hostility. Out on the water, the waves were rough. I could barely keep my balance and would have flown off the boat if Ben hadn't held on to me. I was still a bit annoyed and tried to pull my hand away, but he stopped me with a firm, Don't move. His grip was tight, the warmth of his palm traveling from my fingertips to my heart, spreading a soothing heat through me. When we were in school, I loved holding Ben's hand in public, wanting everyone to see how close we were. But then, one day, he stopped letting me hold his hand or cling to him. I was really hurt. It was like overnight, he'd distanced himself, and I didn't even know why. Now, here he was again, casually holding my hand like it was nothing, his thumb gently rubbing my fingertips. He's so infuriating, always so effortlessly in control of my emotions. The sunrise over the ocean was breathtaking. The rising sun painted the sky a warm orange as it slowly emerged from the horizon. Ben lay on the deck, sunlight streaming across his face, making him glow. I couldn't help but feel a magnetic pull towards him. The messy strands of hair on his forehead softened his usual sharpness. His eyes were closed, his breathing steady, he looked like he was asleep. I leaned down, propping myself up to count his eyelashes, then instinctively brushed my fingers over his closed eyelids. Ben's eyes snapped open, and he grabbed my hand. What are you doing? I pouted. Checking if you were asleep so I could push you overboard. Ben chuckled, placing my hand over his eyes like a makeshift eye mask. Don't move. If you do, I'll throw you overboard. I rolled my eyes at him but didn't resist. Out of nowhere, Mike approached us, suddenly taking off his shirt to reveal his muscular physique. I was momentarily stunned. What a view. He tilted his chin at Ben. Hey, man, wanna swim? The rivalry between men can be abrupt. And the air turned tense. Not that I was going to stop them, truth be told, I wanted to see Ben shirtless too. Who doesn't love a little competition? Ben lifted his eyelids, casually sat up, and slowly peeled off his black t-shirt, revealing his broad shoulders and lean, muscular frame. He looked wild and untamed, standing right in front of me. He blocked my view. His abs were so close I could reach out and touch them. I was just about to poke him when one sharp look from him made me retreat. I silently cursed myself. Wasn't I the one who was supposed to be seducing him? How did I end up getting flustered instead? Then both of them jumped into the water, freely diving and swimming. I couldn't help but think, sons of the sea. When they came back up, I noticed a hint of admiration. Maybe even a glimmer of interest in Mike's gaze directed at Ben. This felt strange, extremely strange. I'd only ever seen that look on the faces of guys who were, well, gay. While Ben went to rinse off, Mike pulled me aside. "Does your friend have a girlfriend? Or maybe, a boyfriend?" "You." I came here thinking he was interested in me, but how did the situation flip so suddenly? He hesitated a bit, then looked sheepish. "Yeah. It's what you're thinking. I won't beat around the bush. I'm kind of interested in your friend. I just wanted to make sure you two weren't together." I could hardly believe my ears. Was it the loud ocean waves blocking my hearing? I'd never sensed any kind of gay vibe from Mike. "We're not like that, but I like him." I stopped myself from finishing the sentence. Mike snapped his fingers in front of my face to get my attention. Then leaned in to whisper, "Perfect. Help me win him over, and I'll make sure to pay you back." I'd always known Ben was popular, but I didn't expect him to attract both men and women. Just as I was about to ask Mike how he planned to pursue Ben, I suddenly felt a strong arm wrap around me from behind, with a firm grip right above my collarbone. "You can talk, but there's no need to stand so close," a voice said coolly. I tilted my head up to meet Ben's irritated gaze, which radiated an overwhelming sense of authority. Mike looked between the two of us, finally settling his gaze on Ben's face, with an expression of dawning realization. Awkwardly scratching his head, he took a step back. "Well, I thought my love life was finally happening, but it looks like it got shut down before it even started." With a wry smile, he added, "You two go ahead and chat, I'll check with the captain to see if there's anything to eat." Watching Mike walk away, I couldn't help but feel a little guilty, so I turned back and finally asked the question that had been on my mind. "Ben, you're not gay, right?" I didn't want to ruin a potential romance. If he and Mike really had something going on, I didn't want to be the bad guy. Ben clicked his tongue in irritation, pulling me out of his arms and crouching down to look me in the eye. "When did I ever give you that idea? Then why don't you ever date anyone, or show interest in girls? I sent you those cute girl videos, and you didn't even open a single one. And I've been throwing myself at you these past few days, but you act like it's nothing. If you're not gay, then you just don't like me." My voice trailed off, feeling a little defeated by the end. Ben sighed helplessly, his voice softening. "Susie, from the time we were little, have you ever seen me with any other girl?" I shook my head. It was true, he never hung out with any girls except me. Have I ever accepted any other girl's confession? I shook my head again. That was exactly why his mom was suspicious. "Then why don't you get to the point?" I muttered, feeling frustrated and confused. Ben's face flushed, though I couldn't tell if it was from anger or embarrassment. Grabbing my cheeks firmly, he said, "If I don't like you, who do you think I like? Use that brain of yours for once, will you? Even my dog, Nina, is smarter than you." What? Did he just say he likes me? He likes me? Tears welled up in my eyes as I glared at him, feeling slightly wronged. "You're lying. You don't like me. You're always avoiding me, and you didn't even get jealous when I had a crush on that kid at the store. You just tattled to my mom, and I never got free snacks again." Ben gave me a look like I was the dumbest person alive, cupping my face seriously. "You never liked anyone for more than 3 days. Those people meant nothing to you. I didn't even consider them as competition. And my mom said that if a guy is too easy to get, he won't be treasured. I was afraid you'd treat me the same way, like some passing crush." Oh, bless Anna. My mom had always said I was fickle, only interested in things for a moment. If I saw someone skating, I'd immediately insist on learning. But after one fall, I'd stash the skateboard away, never to be touched again. Once, I got obsessed with a Korean idol and left home for his concert, only to get scammed and end up penniless on the street, calling Ben in tears. He had flown out on the earliest flight and brought me home, fuming and telling me to take responsibility for myself. And it wasn't the only time. I was always changing my mind on a whim. But it was different with Ben. I knew exactly how much I liked him. I cared about everything related to him. When his mom approached me, all I felt was joy and excitement. I finally had a legitimate reason to be close to him, to flirt with him, and to test if he might actually like me back. The texts? I sent them on purpose. Touching his leg under the table? Also on purpose. Taking advantage of the blackout? Definitely on purpose. And luckily, none of it was one-sided. Then why did you stop letting me hold your hand in high school? I asked, unable to let go of that old grievance. Suddenly, Ben swept me up into his arms, his voice deep and enticing as it echoed across the boat. Because every time you held my hand, I just wanted to kiss you. If I'd known you were in such a hurry, I wouldn't have held back. In the next second, his lips were on mine, and I felt myself getting lost in the waves of emotions crashing over me. Dizzy with his deliberate teasing, I clung to his shoulders as I felt my knees weaken, unable to stand on my own. After what felt like an eternity, he finally let me go, his eyes still gleaming with intensity. So, do you still think I like guys? I quickly shook my head, too overwhelmed to argue. Ever since that kiss, Ben had been practically insatiable. The moment we got home, he scooped me up and kissed me right in the entryway, like a starving man. His voice, low and dark, breathed against my ear, "Not enough that you're teasing me, you even went after someone else, huh? Think you've got guts now?" Oh. I hadn't explained about Mike yet. He must have thought I brought Mike around to make him jealous, which, okay, wasn't entirely untrue. But I needed to clear this up before he completely lost it. Pressing my hands to his chest, I pushed him back slightly. "Hold on, I can explain." He leaned down, his lips grazing my neck as he murmured, "Go on, I'm listening." "Well, Mike actually likes you. He was hoping to, try his luck with you." Ben's face registered absolute disbelief, and I couldn't hold back a laugh. I cupped his face, tracing my fingers across his cheeks, and teasingly added, "What can I say? This face is irresistible to everyone. You've got the whole package, babe." The hallway was shadowed, only a little moonlight streaming in. In the dim light, Ben's gaze held mine, intense and unyielding. As if he wanted to pull me into himself entirely. "I only want you." Rule-breaking words. I would never again question his interest in girls. Just as things were heating up, the front door clicked open. We broke apart in perfect sync, standing on opposite sides of the doorway like two overly polite hosts. My mom breezed in, wearing a sun hat and heels, her face lighting up with a smile. "What are you two doing here, all prim and proper?" They say embarrassment makes people act busy, that's exactly what happened. I clung to her arm, lowering my gaze with an obedient smile. "I missed you, Mom. Are you tired? Come in." From the corner of my eye, I saw Anna giving me a not-so-subtle wink, silently asking about my progress with Ben. I gave her an okay sign, hoping that would be enough for now. Anna and I sneaked out to the balcony, drawing the curtains tightly around us as if anyone could see our secret transaction. "Susie, how's it going? I've been on edge for days," Anna whispered excitedly. I took my time, grinning. Based on my, thorough observations, Ben is definitely not gay. He's into girls. She relaxed visibly but asked, "And how exactly did you come to that conclusion?" How to put it? Just, he's totally normal in all areas. If anything, he's exceeding expectations. Anna narrowed her eyes. "You're not just covering for him, are you?" "Look, I can handle it if he is, I just don't want a surprise one day when he brings a guy home and I faint dead away." I laughed. "Don't worry, Auntie. Ben is 100% straight. I promise." She finally seemed satisfied, muttering, "Good. I need to get him to bring a girlfriend home soon." I thought, no need to rush him. His girlfriend's already here. The house had 3 bedrooms, and I eagerly followed my mom, hoping to bunk with her for the night. But she just blocked the door with a sly smile. Anna and I are rooming together. You go find your own place to sleep. Mom, I'm 21. Sleeping with Ben isn't exactly appropriate at this point, don't you think? My mom just raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed, and nudged me out the door. Then find somewhere else. Don't interrupt our girl talk. Sometimes, having an open-minded parent was more trouble than it was worth. Back in Ben's room, he'd thoughtfully left a nightlight on and was sleeping on a makeshift bed on the floor. Ben, you asleep? I whispered, too restless to stay quiet. Not yet, he replied, his voice a little drowsy. Rolling over to the edge of the bed, I looked down at him, propping my chin on my arms. Want to talk? He smirked, his tone lazy. What, about the little conspiracy between you and my mom? I knew I'd heard something near the balcony. So he'd heard everything. Never mind then. I buried my head in the pillow, pretending to fall asleep. But Ben wasn't letting me off that easily. He got up, climbed onto the bed, and hovered over me, pinning me in place. You told her I was totally normal in all areas. How do you know, if you haven't tested it yourself? His eyes were filled with mischief, his voice low and teasing. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My entire body tingled as his gaze held me captive. Stop leaning so close. It's too hot. I stammered. Ignoring my weak protest, his warm hand found my waist. So? Are you done spreading rumors about me? I huffed. Surrendering, hey, it wasn't me. Anna started it. The warmth from his touch made my entire back tingle, every place he touched leaving a trail of heat. I held onto his neck, half whimpering, it's too warm. He chuckled, feeling my tension, and gently ran his hand over my head. What's wrong? Weren't you all bold before, always teasing me? That had been bravado, knowing he'd never actually act on it. But now? I wasn't so sure. I nodded sheepishly. And he let out a soft laugh, his nose brushing mine as he murmured, guess I'll let you off, just for tonight. The next day, our whole group headed to the island's scenic overlook. While our parents were busy taking group photos, Ben and I wandered around the edges of the viewpoint. We eventually found ourselves in front of a bridge strung with colorful, fluttering ribbons, symbolizing wishes and blessings. Ben pulled 2 red ribbons from the bridge and handed one to me. Want to write a wish? Sitting on a stone bench, I carefully shielded my ribbon from his view, not wanting him to peek. Ben chuckled at my suspicious, secretive expression. Once you're done, give it to me, and I'll tie it up for you. Nice try, but no thanks. Then you'd see it. I retorted. After carefully tying my ribbon to the farthest spot I could reach, I took a few steps back to admire it. If you looked closely, you could make out Ben X Susie written on it. I turned back with a teasing grin. So, what did you write? Ben just smirked, leaning close to whisper, mine's empty. I've already got what I wished for. In that moment, I swear I could hear both our hearts racing in sync. Smiling, I threw my arms around his waist and stood on tiptoe to kiss the corner of his lips. He tasted sweet, probably from the candy I'd given him earlier. But when I pulled back, I saw our parents standing behind us. We froze, wide-eyed, the awkwardness in the air almost palpable. But Anna reacted first, pulling my mom into an excited hug as they squealed in delight. Oh, I knew it. They're perfect for each other. My dream finally came true. My mom, adjusting her hat and looking pleased, gave a little smirk. Sisters become in-laws, how ideal.